Hello and welcome to the Spazzin Sports Show, Episode 2. I am your host, Chas Kamara, and in today's episode, we will be talking about Major 1. We'll be recapping all of the teams and their performances during Major 1. So to start off, we're going to start off with Florida Mutineers. They did play Boston Breach in the losers round 1, and Boston got the better of them, winning 3-2. Florida played all right, especially in the respawns, but eventually, Capsule and the boys of Boston decided that enough was enough, and they ended up beating Florida 3-2. A little bit of takeaways. I believe that Dave Patty is still a great player, especially being a rookie in this league. He's definitely the star of the team. If Awakening, gets up to speed, later on in the season, I do believe that this team could make a run, and definitely make the playoffs this year, and might turn a couple of heads around, but we'll see. As far as the second team goes, Seattle. Everybody thought that Seattle, going into it was already having a tough time, especially losing the last 2 qualifying matches, then eventually losing to Optic 3-0. In winners round 1 on that Thursday, and then literally the next day losing to Paris. Paris is a good team. Don't get me wrong, especially that with the roster change that they did indeed make. But Seattle is just struggling to find their own. Sid Pred after a hot start are starting to slow down a bit, and accuracy, playing that leadership role. He's great, but I do believe that Mac definitely needs to step it up just a bit, being the 4th on that team, and hopefully, accuracy just kind of leads them to victory, like the first 3 matches that they had in the qualifying. And they didn't play great, obviously, their placement's not great, but, they do have a lot to take from this and for this next major. And then third, we have LAG. LAG, playing Minnesota specifically in the losers, was definitely eye-opening, especially considering that Minnesota is so good at, search. And we knew that LAG coming into it, struggled at search. They're really a hard-point team, especially when it comes to Hook and Asim. That was, 2 of the players on LAG that I thought would be the X factor, and sure enough, they were, but it was really Slasher, though, that, struggled to find his way, especially, in the 2 matches that they ended up losing, one in the winners round, one, to London, and the other, obviously, being against Minnesota. But Minnesota's a great team, Priesta, attached Standy, of course, and Major Maniac, so I don't believe that they're out of it. LAG is still a great team in my book, and if they do catch fire, it could mean a lot of things for the league, especially how competitive it is, and we'll see. New York, not too much to say about New York. They're still 11th, ranked team. Paris might actually be better than them for all I know. Losing to LAT pretty bad, in a hot 3-0. It's really quick. The change that they made, especially with Royalty, was definitely a temporary change. I do believe Neptune is going to return to the team, which may make a big impact. It may not. It may be much of the same thing. But as far as Clay, Krim, and Hydra go, Hydra's still playing great. You could always rely on him. It's just the vets, Clay and Krim struggling to find their way, which is kind of being an ongoing theme, especially when it comes to these matches, to these lower tier teams. But we'll see. And then we go into Paris. Paris losing to Boston 3-1 after winning against Seattle. Being the underdog, especially, was really special to them. But Boston just came up, all guns blazing, especially Narrow, Capsule. Methods had a great game as well against Paris, and Temp. I do believe Temp is the best player on Paris for sure. He's improved a lot since Cold War, and I do believe that if they could build around him, especially with the addition of Tom Gravity, it's definitely looking great for them. I do believe that they may need to sub in player for John, just to make that, additional change just to see if it'll change anything for the better. I do see a lot of improvement in them. Seattle obviously coming off of a tough couple of weeks, obviously, help them. But I do believe that Paris is improving, and the rest of the league should definitely be careful when they play Paris. And then we go into Minnesota again. After beating LAG, in the losers round one, they played great. Don't get me wrong, they played to the best of their abilities. But LAG was too much for them. I feel like LA, the Thieves, they had a lot. When it came to the respawns, and when you could win hard points like that, and again, especially against Rocker, who's a 2, 3, 5 team, meaning that they only really win search and control. It's really hard to play a team that's really good at hardpoint in the Thieves. So, I see a lot of improvement in them. Standy's playing, good, but Priesta, again, that X factor. When he does good, they're fine. But then when he struggles a bit, the team struggles as a whole. So, it's not necessarily looking good, when it comes to that front. But, if they could just win one of those hard points or get used to playing 2 of the maps when it comes to hard point, I do believe this team will be very dangerous in the future. And then next, obviously, we go with Boston. Boston, obviously, they losing the phase, winning against Florida, and winning against Paris, and then losing to Toronto. Nero, Capsule, TJ, and Methods, that whole team, I do believe they're going to stick together for the rest of the season. They look like a good team that could compete against any, opponent other than FaZe and Optic. But that goes for a lot of teams. But, if they could just, just get used to playing with each other, especially, considering that Nero and Capsule, this was their first ever LAN major event. Their first ever LAN tournament. It's going to give them a lot of experience. This gave them a lot of experience, and I do believe that they're going to come up all guns blazing for Major 2. Then obviously we go into LAT, losing to Atlanta. I mean, the way they lost was horrendous. Everybody wasn't necessarily shocked because it was FaZe, but the way that the Thieves lost, they could have definitely won that. But as a whole, Octane, Kenny, Envoy, Draza, especially Envoy, the route man, he's playing great. Kenny's playing great, Octane's playing great, Draza. There's not a lot, when it comes to, the difference in play. It's mostly when they play as a team. When they play as a whole team, that's when they're the most dangerous. But once they start doing, individual things and, start going off on their own and getting picked off one by one, that's when it starts to, decrease the team's chances in winning. Especially a team against FaZe, being number 1 in the world, pretty much every game mode, it's very dangerous, if you have those individual plays and you start getting picked off one by one, and then, next thing you know, all 4 are dead, and, you lose the map. So, I do believe, they're definitely, when it comes to that, I do believe that they are still the number 3 team in the world right now, or number 4 team in the world right now, behind, obviously FaZe, Optic, and London. I do believe that London still has their number. London is just a bit better, especially when it comes to their S&D. But I do believe if they, come together and start working, more together, then I do believe that they might come out with a major victory or two, surprise people. When it comes to Toronto, their 4th place finish, losing every hard point is crazy to me. They should have been way down that list, when it comes to the placements of, Major 1. And coming out 4th place, not winning a single map of hard point, that goes to show that if this team could, hold their own in hard point, this team, might be unbeatable, and they might go up to the standard as they were in Cold War last year, going to the finals last year, and, we'll see about that. But I do believe that Toronto is, playing a great game, and if they continue to play a great game, then, Cammy, Cleanets, Inside Advance, it could definitely, turn a lot of heads, and we'll see, what happens, in the next couple of weeks, especially when it comes to Cammy. Practicing more and more with him, practicing more and more as a team, getting used to the game as a team. This team could be very dangerous, and I do believe if they come to their own and start winning a couple of hard points here and there, they could be the number 2 team in the world, and by a landslide. And then obviously London, losing a phase, being third place. I do believe, Nasty and Gizmo, they're, almost head to head, when it comes to rookie of the league, along with Pred and Sib, obviously, but, and Capsule and Nero. But I do believe that they're such a strong team. That's the reason why I believe that they are better than LA Thieves. But, with that, being said, the veteran and leadership of Zero definitely, holds that team together as a whole. And, if they continue to, play at a high level as they did, this past major, I do believe that, they could definitely, compete with FaZe and Texas and Thieves and, Toronto if they get better. I do believe that, they could definitely fight for a world championship this year, as far as that goes. And then we go into Atlanta FaZe, obviously, Abizi, Sim, Celium, Arcides. Abizi, he definitely had a lot of flashes of brilliance, Celium, obviously, and then Sim. Arcides, playing that anchor role, definitely holding his own for sure. But one thing that, that they failed to do against Optic those 2 times they played him was, they didn't necessarily take a lot of challenges that they should have, meaning that they didn't go out and try and kill them, and it was very unfortunate for them because they ended up losing both matches for that. When they are known to be a very aggressive team, and intense team. But once they sort of hesitated or maybe started to fall back or run back, from points, hard points or, points on the map when it comes to S&D, and started to give that positioning, it just kind of led for them to collapse most of the time. And it took flashes of brilliance by, Abizi and Celium and Simp and Arcides just to keep them in the game. So if you could imagine that if they just kind of held their own as a team, push as a team, as they normally do, and stay aggressive as a team, you can only imagine how good this team could be. They are good as is. I still believe that they're the number 1 team in the world right now. I believe that was just a fluke, considering it was in, Texas, for crying out loud. But, I mean, that shouldn't matter. But, if this team keeps playing the same way, and just cranks it up just a little bit more when it comes to being aggressive and, holding points on the map, this team will be unbeatable, just like how they were in Cold War. And then obviously when it comes to Texas, me being an Optic fan, it was very cool to see, Seth finally win a tournament when it comes to the CDL. It's been a while for him. I know I meant a lot to him. You could definitely see it in his face, especially when it came to playing with Dashy, Shoxy, and Illy, especially after the merger. It was really special to see Hastro and Hex and, even Hitch, Rambo, and Sender, and, in general, it was really cool to see, especially in front of their own fans, their home crowd. It was really cool to see. But as far as their performance goes, Shoxy played lights out, 80 played lights out, Skunk played lights out, Dashy played lights out. A lot of, when it came to the strategy, especially within those S&Ds that they ended up winning against FaZe, it was almost like they took something out of FaZe's playbook, which is the reason why why they won. And it was really cool to see that, because now you're seeing them adapt to playing, the FaZes of the world, the Royal Ravens of the world, the Ultras of the world, the Thieves of the world even, so they're adapting to each team, which is really cool to see. And, we didn't necessarily see that at all from Optic, last year. So it's really cool. Obviously, this being a new team, it's really cool to see. But Scump's playing well, Dasher's playing well, Shotzi's playing well, Illy's playing well. They all had flashes of brilliance in those 2 series versus FaZe. I do believe that it's very detrimental to them or it's very important to them that all 4 of them play at a very high level. And that's why they're going to compete with FaZe. I do believe it's a 2-horse race. As far as today, it's definitely a 2-horse race. Atlanta and Texas are just far in front of the rest of the pack. That's it's just really cool to see Optic do well again. As far as the whole tournament goes, there was a lot of things when it came to the fans, calling out when the person was defusing or where the person was, the location of the player. There was a couple of instances where that happened, and the casters got mad, or there was a couple of officials that had to shut them up a bit. But other than that, it was a really cool event. Watching it, I couldn't even imagine watching it in person. I've been to COD Champ before. I've been to an event here before in LA, and it was really cool. So I can't even imagine, being in Texas and where the real green wall is. It must have been really cool, and it really did. It was very loud and all that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my recap of Major 1. I do believe that this next major might determine where these teams really are, truly, because, we're only like 6-7 games in, maybe if you're FaZe and Optic, you're 8-9 games in, into your season. There's still a lot of COD to be played. So it's going to be really interesting to see that, considering that there's 3 more majors, including that Pro-Am, in the middle of the year, in the middle of the season. So, that's pretty much it. That was my recap of Major 1, this past week. I do hope you enjoyed the video. There will be a new episode coming out, in a couple of days or so from when I'm recording this, in regards to, Major 2 qualifying and my predictions for that. So, and players to watch for that. But, other than that, I do hope you enjoyed the video. This was the Spazzin Sports Show with your host, Chas Kamara. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. And have a blessed day.